Guys, it's time for the Apprentice video. Just going to be giving you a little bit of information about the Apprentice, his abilities, his towers, and kind of what all they do. So let's give you a brief overview of the Apprentice. He's a ranged hero that excels in multi-target attacks. Basic attacks deal magical damage and mark enemies, while abilities consume the marks. Secondary attack can be charged and pierces through multiple enemies. It says he's a quiet, reserved outside of the battlefield. The Apprentice truly shines when he's blasting back enemies with awe-inspiring magical power. So that's pretty much him. He's the mage, so that's pretty much what he does. So he has a few different abilities. I'll go show them to you real quick on the dummy. His first one, he marks targets with his basic attack. So if he shoots like these two, puts that little mark on it. The number one can fire up to 5. If I can get attack off on these, 5 homing missiles, which are pretty cool. Now, the marks that you get with the basic attacks also increase the damage that your other abilities do. Now, you have Whirlwind, which goes out, it knocks mobs into the air, holds them up in the air for a little bit, does a little bit of damage over time, and then drops them. And that'll do more damage if they're targeted by the mark. Then you have Mana Bomb, and that's pretty much a lot like DD1. Just an AoE explosion. Pretty cool. Does a lot of damage, has a pretty good AoE, and you also take less damage while you're channeling that. So let's talk about the towers a little bit. They're definitely different looking than they were in DD1, as far as at least the Fireball Tower. These two are new, but let's talk about the magical blockade. It looks like it's pretty flimsy, you know, it's being held up with magical powers and everything. The neat thing about it is it has a special ability that at 25% damage, it disappears, it explodes and disappears. So it does some damage to the mobs, but then it's all you see at that point is the base right down along there. The rest of it is gone, and mobs can actually walk right through it at that point. And it has a slow recharge, and then it comes back. Let's see. Recharge time is 10 seconds. So for 10 seconds, the mobs can walk right through it, and before it pops back up. So it'll do that at every 25% damage taken, and you can repair it and all that. So let's talk about the different design as far as the upgrades go. So we've got this at level 0. At level 1, it gets a little bit more ornate. Looks a little wider. It's got some little like horns on the back. It's pretty cool. Now this next level, it's not going to change at all, but then it goes into the last 4th and 5th level. It gets even more ornate, larger. It's pretty cool looking. And then it looks the same at star rank. So it's a pretty neat little wall. I'm not sure if I really care for the whole disappearing thing. It has less health overall than the spike blockade, and the whole fact that it disappears. I haven't really found too much use for it, but if I'm soloing with just an Apprentice, I'll definitely will use it. You know, I normally don't lose my walls, but the fact that it does go down for 10 seconds, sometimes that can be pretty bad. But what I tend to try to do is if I'm going to cover a lane with one, I'll put one up front, and then I'll do this. Oops. With the second set of them. And what that does, if you've listened to my gameplay video, you know that the front target is going to be what everything's going to be going for. That's how the aggro system works. It's going to go after that wall. So this one's going to be attacked. When this one drops down, they're not going to be able to make it through these other two that are sitting here. And the reason why I do that versus doing this, which I see people do sometimes, is that's going to be taking full damage from the spear throwers as they chuck their spears through it. It's going to go right through and hit the other one, so it does more damage that way. And I just don't prefer to do it that way. You can in certain instances, but it is going to be taking more damage. Where this one here, these might take some damage, but I kind of offset them. Normally I make them a little bit wider than this, but what that's going to allow is they're going to aim for this, and hopefully the arrow will go down the middle and not hit the back ones, or it will hit only one, not the other. So there's a lot higher chance that you're going to be able to keep that lane, completely blocked off. So, okay, now let's talk about the fireball tower. The fireball tower is a lot like the one from DD1. It shoots out a fireball. When it hits a mob, it does a small AoE explosion around there. What I like about these towers are they're pretty small. They're definitely cool looking. I mean, you've got fire down there, you got fire in the opening, and we'll look at it as it changes. Gets a little bigger. Now you've got like a face here with the eyes. And if you look at the starting one, you see the mouth, but you really don't see the eyes up top. Now the base has gotten a little more ornate, a little bigger. You've got this back part that's gotten bigger, but now it actually looks like a face. It looks pretty mean, like a dragon getting ready to spit fire at you. So as we go up, and it changes. The last one, now it really looks like it means business. I mean, this is one pissed off fire dragon that's ready to hurl fireballs into your face. So it's a pretty cool looking tower. I like it. Now, overall, I'm not super happy with the fireball tower. Once you get 2 upgrades into it, it's not bad. Let's see here. But you can see the range is only from me to it, so it's pretty short. It's alright, but I prefer to get 2 upgrades into it, and then it's hitting over here. Now at that range, you can start hopefully hitting the spear throwers, depending on how far you have your wall in front of it. Normally I will put, if you've listened to my other videos, I've talked about not putting towers with a wall right in front of it because of the spear throwers. I'll put my wall, and then I'll put my towers off to the side a little bit, so that helps quite a bit. But the fireball towers aren't bad. The nice thing is it's the only tower that the Apprentice has that will do damage to flying units. The ice one doesn't do any damage, and this one's ground only. So the fireball tower is the only one that will attack air units, which is nice. And once it gets a couple upgrades, it's not a bad tower. But, excuse me, normally in-game I tend to use these 2 towers unless I'm having to deal with air units, and then I'll use this one. But for most of my lanes, I'm dealing with these 2. I really like these 2 towers. So let's talk about the ice tower. The ice tower will shoot out. It has an extremely long range. Let me see if I can drop another one here so we can see. I'm going to drop it clear back here. Okay. As you can see, it's got quite a bit farther range than the fireball tower. I mean, it's probably over, let's see, the fireball tower has 2/3 the range, if not less than that. So it's quite a bit more range on there, especially if you upgrade it. You get an upgrade in there, and then now it's way back here. I mean, you gained probably 7, 8 feet on the range, maybe. So it's a pretty cool tower, and I'm going to take these down there and let you see the animations of them as well. The Squire towers are pretty straightforward. I did show the cannon one, but the other ones were pretty straightforward. These ones have some pretty cool effects. But the ice tower, it shoots out a cold beam of frost, and it chills the targets. And it can choose one, and it'll freeze it, and it'll choose another one and freeze it. It's pretty cool. It has a really long range and slows them pretty well. Depending on your spec, it actually will have a chance that when it freezes the target, or it's like shooting the cold at it, at the end of that channel, it has a chance to freeze the target into a solid block, which can then be shattered, instantly killing the mob. So I really like this. It offers a lot of CC, and with that ice spec, it really is a lot of fun. Now this one is the Earth Tower. This guy here, he shoots out, he can only attack ground units. The ice one can attack air units as well, but it doesn't do any damage. All it does is slow. But it is nice to have it there so it can slow down the flying units when they do come. Now this one, what it does is, and when I show you the effects down below, you'll see, it shoots out something in the ground, and it goes to a ground mob, and it bursts out of the ground, does damage. It's AoE damage, which is nice, and with a certain spec, which I'll show you the specs here in a minute, it actually allows you, there's a chance of it, when it hits, to knock the mobs in the air, which is really nice. So if you've got that knocking mobs in the air, you've got the ice beam slowing them down, it can really choke a lane and really slow them down while doing a lot of damage, which is really nice. So let me show you the specs real quick before I show you the animations. So you've got reduced cooldown, which is nice if you like your abilities. Right now I have 7 points in here, and it's giving me 22, almost 23% reduced cooldown on Tornado and Arcane Volley. So I tend to use those a lot, even when I am a tower spec character. I just like that. There is Mage's spec that increases your mana regeneration, but overall I find there's lots of mana dropped during the waves, so I really don't have to worry about that unless I'm fighting like an ogre where I keep having to spend my abilities over and over and over and over. Then I might run out of mana, but overall I'm able to get enough mana that I don't need this very often. Blockade Boom, when the arcane barrier with the wall, it will do a secondary explosion when it returns. So it does the explosion when it dies and disappears at 25%. And then while it's doing its recharge, when it comes back, it'll do a secondary explosion, which can be nice. It adds some more damage, but I don't think it's really that useful as far as, you know, when the mobs are up there, they're going to be getting bombarded with the towers anyway, so having that extra boom, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's that great. Then we have Fireball. It has a chance that for each shot, you have a chance that a second shot will come out and does 70% damage. That is nice, especially at lower end maps. When you're leveling, you're going to be using a lot of Fireball towers, so you have access to like the Earth one and whatnot. So I did have points in here, but as I got up into the higher levels, I found that these two were the ones I really liked. And 20% seemed to be like the sweet spot as far as getting a good bang for your buck before it started giving you less and less as you were leveling up. So I went 20 points in freeze for a 60.58% chance that'll freeze its target at the end of the channel. And then the Earthly Knockup, I get a 25% chance of that to knock up in the air. So I really like that combo, since for this guy I use those two towers a lot. So let's take a look at what they do. Alright, as you can see, it's hitting that one for 1100, but it's also able to reach over and hit this guy. Now this can be good if you're not running things like, say, auras that are thinning out the mobs and you're getting a lot of mobs up there into your face. This tower will do, you know, you get like 2 or 3 of those on a lane, and it'll be doing a lot of damage to those smaller mobs as well, really thinning them out. I like it, but I don't know. I like the Earth one better. I mean, this guy is doing, you know, 1200 DPS. Let's see here. Now you've got the Ice one, which has got a really wide beam of targets, which is nice. Bigger than the Fireball Tower, I believe. Well, the Fireball Tower is about the same, but the Earth one is shorter. So let's look at what this does. It just channels and slows them down, and then it starts doing it again. So obviously if you have more speed, it'll keep doing it, but depending on the lanes, I normally run 1 to 2 ice and 1 to 2 earth shatter towers. So it's a pretty neat tower, but this right here is my favorite. Oh, I don't think he's gonna register attack. I had this problem before. Oh, there we go. Yeah, look at that. I mean, he attacks fairly quickly. And in a lane, something that big, I mean, that's going to be hitting pretty much all the mobs that are coming down the lane. And it does AoE damage. And it knocks mobs up in the air if you have the spec too. Not every time, but a lot of times. So I really like it, and it has some really long range as well. Let's see. Just for some reason, it has problems targeting the dummies. But I mean, look at that. It's almost at rank 1 over there. I mean, that's almost twice the range the Fireball Tower has at the start. You throw one upgrade in there, and it's past the wall. So that's pretty darn cool. I really like these towers. Like I said, if you couple 2 Earth Shatters with an Ice, pretty much lock down the lane. So that's pretty nice. But that's pretty much it for the Apprentice. Talk about the specs, towers, and the abilities. And I really like the Apprentice. I struggled with him trying to solo right at the start. You know, the Fireball Towers suffer without upgrades. They just don't have the range. Once you get the upgrades, they've got some pretty good range, but like I said, only being able to shoot out to here, I mean, that's not very far at all. So, but if you drop less towers overall, like instead of dropping 4 on a lane, drop 2 on a lane and upgrade them, you're going to be a lot better off soloing than trying to use up all the DU on multiple towers. That's something a lot of new players don't realize. You don't need to use all that DU, and since mana is hard to come by, it's better to use that mana on upgrades versus, 6 towers per lane. So just something to keep in mind. Hope you guys enjoyed the video.